Hello, this is Neil Cole, the author of It Belongs in a Museum and a Doctor Who collector and curator of the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi in Northumberland, UK. You're listening to the one and only Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting. I certainly have.
Larry, it's Fraser. And you use, they all say, who is Doctor Who? Where is he from?
What does he do? They wonder who is Doctor Who? So I ask you, who's Doctor Who?
Welcome back to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, the podcast that explores the exhibited world of Doctor Who collecting and all kinds of Doctor Who merchandise, and sometimes just Doctor Who. Brought to you in part by Forbidden Planet and Bags Unlimited Incorporated. I am Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I have been a Doctor Who collector since 1981, which makes 43 years. Welcome to our 81st episode, celebrating Doctor Who collecting and much, much more. I was lucky enough to open up one of the first Doctor Who stores in Chicago that exclusively served Doctor Who fans. We actually visited fan clubs. And that was the beginning of a great success of this little company back in 1984, November of 1984, called Bundles from Britain, which was coming up now on celebrating its 40th anniversary of its founding. And we're hoping to have a special panel at Chicago TARDIS this year. We're hoping that my longtime partner there, Gene Smith, will join us for a celebration of this company and what it led to along the way. And of course, this wonderful little company that I thought was so insignificant that no one would remember it is mentioned in a book called Red, White, and Who, The Story of Doctor Who in America. You can find it on page 384. What an amazing thing. Still blows me away to this day. You can get a link to buy this book at the front page of our website at DoctorWhoCollectors.com. We do not make any money on this book. This is just a service to help you get a hold of a copy. All right. We are part of the Direction Point Network podcast here. You can find some great podcasts on Doctor Who at directionpoint.org. And if you host a Doctor Who podcast, or you're thinking of hosting a Doctor Who podcast, why move forward without the help of a network? So join today. There's no cost to join. And you can join the ranks of great podcasters such as The Time Streams, Police Box in a Junkyard, the Doctor Who Target Book Club, Doctor Who Literature, Traveling the Vortex, Time Ram, and many more. For more information and to fill out the online form, go to directionpoint.org. And whenever I talk about links, I include this in every episode. So if you've heard this before, you can skip ahead. But anyway, if you're new to the podcast, because you can start anywhere, you don't have to start at the beginning. You could start here at 81. No problem. Two great resources for our collectors are posted here, including timelash.com, and underneath that, the TARDIS Library. Create a free account to keep track of your books, your Betamax, your vinyl records, everything except magazines, pretty much. And find out what printings you have and create want lists and links to Amazon and eBay. What a great resource. We send our thanks to Mr. Dan O'Malley, who keeps that site free with advertising. If you need to do some more in-depth research, back in the day, you had to buy one of these little mini telephone books. And if you need to know what a telephone book is, okay, I'm sorry, I kind of dated myself there. But anyway, there are these very thick books from Telos Publications called Howe's Transcendental Toy Box. Well, books become outdated, new editions came out, and so finally it went to the web. So all you have to do is go to doctorwhotoybox.co.uk and visit David J. Howe's Transcendental Toy Box online. I am glad to be a contributor and editor of that website, and it's a wonderful place to find just about everything you can find for Doctor Who. Great resource for collectors. So if you're also looking for great Doctor Who items at great prices, I would say you could look no further than DoctorWhoStore.com. it's in the name. That is Alien Entertainment. My good friend Gene Smith owns that company and works out of Lombard and Chicago, so they have what you need. Always running sales. A lot of stuff from the original Bundles from Britain inventory, which is really quite something. You can even select free pickup from the store if you want to avoid those shipping charges. So there you go. The Lombard location is usually open Wednesday through Saturday, but call first. Go to alienentertainment.com just to make sure. We're getting into convention season, so they do shut down for conventions. But you could also visit their large booth at Chicago TARDIS. So make sure you visit there. That's one great place to see almost everything they've got. And if they don't have it, they can always go get it for you because the shop's only a couple blocks away from the hotel. You can also find some great stuff at Forbidden Planet. And you don't need to go to Forbidden Planet. You can go to my website at DoctorWhoCollectors.com, select Doctor Who merchandise links, and purchase through our own store. We get a small commission on each sale. You check out at Forbidden Planet, they ship it to you, and then they send us a check, and that check helps keep us on the air. Our eBay store, of course, our eBay store is currently closed for convention season because we do take our books on the road, and we want to make sure that we don't sell something that should be sold online. So we will get that store reopened probably in a week or so. All right. We've got, don't forget, of course, Who North America. We can't forget them. My friends Keith and Jenny, great folks. You can find them at whona.com. That's WHONA.com. And they've got a lot of great stuff there. Don't forget our good friends across the pond at the Who Shop in London. And you can find them at thewhoshop.com. Of course, on our website, in addition to all the podcasts posted on our website, we have also the complete guide to classic hardcover books. These are the books published by Alan Wingate, Longbow, and W.H. Allen from 1974 to 1988, including all known reprints and a good price guide to help you figure out what you should pay and what you should not pay for a copy of the book. All right, what is going on? I'm going to start with Chicago TARDIS today because that's coming up in November, even though this podcast is dropping 1 week before Oktoberfest. I will get to that in just a moment. But Chicago TARDIS 2024 is set for November 29th to December 1st at the Westin Hotel in Lombard, Illinois. Join us for a celebration of their 25th anniversary of this convention. So there you go. Lots of anniversaries. Also, the 25th anniversary of Big Finish too. So then you'll have the Big Finish Island in the dealer's room, all Big Finish, including Jason Hay-Gallery, the CEO, big boss of Big Finish. A lot of guests here, so I've got the complete guest list so far, although this still is expanding as I'm talking. So first we start with 3 doctors, count them 3. Paul McGann, number 8, Sylvester McCoy, number 7, and Joe Martin, ? Of the alternate universe there. Joe Martin's first Chicago convention. So there you go. Also, to match that 3, we've got something for the Blake 7 fans out there. 3 Blake 7 actors, Jan Chappell, Brian Croucher, and Sally Nivette. 3 of my favorite people. I can't wait to meet them. Also, as I mentioned, of course, Jason Hay-Gallery, and he's bringing over a few people as well, including our good friend Sadie Miller, the daughter of Elizabeth Sladen, and she will be there. Also, Sonny McGann, and yeah, you heard that right. That's Paul McGann's son. He was on Big Finish. More in just a moment there, but coming with your ticket, of course, is included the wonderful person that is Fraser Hines, and Fraser will be here. He missed last year, and we told him how much we missed him, and he was, doing a show, and of course we wanted to wish him well on the show. But of course, he just recently turned 80, by the way. So what a great guy. So we can't wait to see him again. And coming with Fraser is a side of Wendy Padbury. So you've got the complete second Doctor crew there from the latter part of the Troughton era. So also just added recently is a wonderful, wonderful young woman, Daisy Ashford. She's the daughter of Jeffrey Beavers and the late Carolyn John, who plays Liz Shaw for Big Finish. We tried to get her on the show last year. We were unable to contact her, but I will try again. We got some music folks here. Composers Mark Ayers and Dominic Glynn, you might recognize that name, will be there. Also, we've got Jay Griffiths. She played Jack in The Magician's Apprentice. And Kieran Hyman, who was one of the people responsible for doing the colorizations of the old Doctor Who's. And finally, we've got Tommy Knight, who played Luke in the Sarah Jane Adventures. So, and more to come, apparently. So there you go. We're getting close. Panel suggestions are still open, I believe. And then pretty soon we'll have the call for panelists. So make sure you check that website at chicagotardis.com and stay on top of that. Now, coming up this weekend, this Saturday, in Canby, Indiana, we've got Doctoberfest Infiltrate. That'll be at the Who North America. It'll be outdoors. It'll be intense. I mean, not intense, but in actual tents. So the weather's supposed to be 73 degrees and sunny, so it should be fine. So wear your favorite costume. Come on down. I'm doing the second appearance of my panel for the year, which is a living history of classic Doctor Who books from 64 to 96, 9 boxes worth of artifacts to basically show you the books that we didn't get to see here in the United States for a good portion of that time. And that'll be at noon. So you can see these books in person that you've only seen in photos or in Doctor Who magazine or online or on auctions that you can't afford. So here you go, and I'll also have a special table dedicated not just for my items for sale, but if you want to take a look at something up close, I'm more than happy to help you there. So visit my dealer table, of course. All sales do go for the podcast. I've got over 300 Target books for sale, including a few other goodies too. So check us out. All right, so there you go. Other guests include my good friend Keith Barnfather, the founder of Real Time Pictures. He'll be there. Brandon Peters of The Brandon Peters Show. Catherine Sullivan, an author. The authors of Red, White, and Who, Nick Seidler, Robert Warnock, John Lavallee, Libby Shea, and Stephen Warren Hill. So there you go. We also have Mark and Dina Dooley of the Hoosier Network. Nicholas Crone, who's a writer, director, and actor, and D&D Balloon Twisters will be there too. And don't forget Kevin Lyons of Custom Toys. What a show. So join us this Saturday. There is no cost to go. We just ask that you buy a t-shirt to help support the costs and, of course, support our dealer tables and, of course, buy some things from the Who North America store. What a wonderful place to be. So join me this Friday and Saturday, or this Saturday, I should say. I'm arriving Friday, but it's on Saturday, starting at 10 o'clock in the morning. All right, see you there. Excellent. Now, coming back to rumors and myths, I'm going to be talking about a little bit of that in my time in this episode, but one of the big rumors that I always get is that, hey, I've seen a third printing of The 10th Planet in hardcover. I said, okay, you got a photo? Nah, I gave it away. Okay, well, I'm sorry to say we have found no proof of any actual third printings. We're actually getting ready to completely debunk a myth about the Loch Ness Monster question, because we're pretty sure now that there are only 2 printings of that book. The elusive first printing with its blue spine, which is selling for over $1,000 these days, and the third edition, which is third impression, I think was a misprint. It was supposed to say second, because nobody can verify that a second impression exists. So there we go. But anyway, I'm always on the lookout for this concrete proof. If you do have a book that we don't have on our site, contact me. We need photos, the spine photo, the cover photos, and the copyright page, which has the impressions. So just contact us at drwhocollectorspodcast@gmail.com and put hardcover found in the subject line so we don't send it to spam. Target books. I gotta be careful. Whenever I say Target books, Tony Witt appears, but nope, it doesn't seem to have worked this time. But anyway, this podcast does buy job lots of Target books. We buy 20 or 30 or 50 or 100, but we pay $2.75 per book, including shipping. That's our final offer price. And we will, if you want to get rid of them and you don't want to sit with them on an auction site and you're asking too much money and no one's buying and you just need them gone, then contact me. Just email me with a list, condition, and photos. And if they're junked, I'm not going to pay $2.75. I'll pay $1 a book if you just want to get rid of them. But we do turn them. I do check to see if I need them in the collection, and then we do turn them around, and we use the money to pay for the podcast. So it's your way of helping us out. There we go. So just do that, and we can take care of that. So here we go. Okay, on today's show. Got an exciting show today. I'm speaking with the curator of the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi in Northumberland and the author of a book called It Belongs in a Museum. Neil Cole will be on the program today. I also want to thank our patrons. If you want to see exclusive material, including special video content, our number one video requested, of course, is the Peter Purvis interview, which still is one of the best interviews we've done in this podcast. Go to our Patreon page and subscribe at the $15 level. Even if you subscribe for $15 and leave, that $15 helps our podcast. So that we really appreciate that. You can go to patreon.com/Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, or just do a quick search on there and you can find us. You can support us, of course, on our podcast provider, Podbean, and that's drwhocollectors.podbean.com, and you can patronize us at any level you feel comfortable. Our theme song is Who's Doctor Who, performed by Fraser Hines, composed by the great Barry Mason and Les Reed of Tom Jones fame. Of course, Jimmy Page is on this recording as well, so what a great deal. You can hear this podcast almost anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and many more. You can find this podcast pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts, and we are a Direction Point Network podcast. After this small break here, we're going to have My Time, and then followed by our main story, and of course, the most outrageous offer. Stay tuned.
Traveling the Vortex. Are you ready to embark on an epic journey through time and space? Join the thousands of Whovians around the world who've discovered Traveling the Vortex, the ultimate Doctor Who podcast for die-hard fans and curious newcomers alike.
Every week, we dive deep into the Whoniverse, discussing the episodes, theories, and hidden gems. We dissect the Doctor's adventures, share behind-the-scenes stories, and explore the legacy of this iconic show.
Traveling the Vortex brings fans together, fostering a global community of Whovians. Whether you're a fan of classic or new Who, there's something for everyone.
Join us on this incredible journey as we unravel the mysteries of time and space.
Don't miss out. Subscribe to Traveling the Vortex today on your favorite podcast platform.
Traveling the Vortex. Your ticket to adventure awaits.
Traveling the Vortex is a proud member of the Direction Point Podcast Network. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Hi, I'm Juliet.
And I'm Nathan.
Experience Doctor Who from the very beginning through a classic fan's eyes.
And through the eyes of a new Who fan.
Reminisce and relive those classic moments with Nathan as he offers fun insight.
Or experience them for the first time with Juliet as she dwells on social issues, history, fashion, and the size of a flashlight.
We're the Time Streams podcast.
Find us on Spotify, Stitcher, or Apple Podcasts. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
It's my time.
And welcome to My Time. Glad to talk to you today. Anyway, I'm going to talk quickly about Target books and myths and rumors and things like that that expect to affect the sales of Target books. Of course, most notably, and everybody knows about this, except for the people that are still pushing this, there was a big controversy surrounding the Wheel in Space. The Wheel in Space probably had about 30,000 copies printed. We can guess that only because previous issues that year were also put out at the same level. So, and then for some reason, I don't know when this happened, but somebody put out there that there was a factory fire and over half the books were lost. And of course, the price went up. And I just saw a price for £49, which is about almost $60 for a copy of The Wheel in Space, which is absolutely, unfortunately, I can't quite call it outrageous yet because it has not come down. Well, we know, based on fact from very credible people like David J. Howe that there was no factory fire. I mean, we're talking the author of the Target book who did thorough research. There is no factory fire. So there's no reason the book shouldn't be more reasonable. I mean, I'm not saying it shouldn't be $15, $20. That, I can see that. But not 60, 70, 100, 200, whatever has been coming out. That's just absolutely crazy. So, I mean, also, I don't know if you knew this too, but I've also seen it applied to the Target book, The Invasion by Ian Marter, because it kind of looks like Wheel in Space. And so they said, oh, that must be the book that was in the fire. So that one is also going for a lot more money. Now, the Wheel in Space hardcover is not going for crazy money. So apparently the fire didn't affect that, even though it was printed in the same place. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of scratching my head. Myths and rumors can really hurt Doctor Who collectors, because if somebody says half the stock was lost or burnt, that's going to make the other half gone. Now, there are some real stories. The Dalek suits that were made way back in the 60s did suffer a fire, and only a handful are out there. And so those are selling for premium. I don't blame that. That's definitely the case. That did happen. And you know what? Not to say that does occasionally happen, but it didn't happen in this case. So, I mean, I'm just hoping that I can appeal to folks out there who listen that this is not the way to go. Don't buy into that. And I always try to educate as I go along. I often get ridiculed or trolled or whatever the case is about, no, there was a fire. I'm like, well, were you there? Did you witness it? Did you take video of the event? Could you share that with us? Is there any kind of news story? I searched for a news story that would have been newsworthy. Factory fire destroying books. Absolutely nothing. So, I'm just going to say, let's stick to the truth. And that's, basically that should be a line for everybody. Stick to the truth about especially your item. I'm still, we still have books out there that are selling for way too much money, but hey, that's the way it goes. Sometimes, and I've been through this before, a seller can demand whatever they want. So as long as somebody pays it. If you don't pay it, they can't demand it. So that's always the case. Keep negotiating, keep trying to push for a better rate. Not too crazy. I mean, don't get, to the point where it's $1. I'm like, it's not $1. It's going to be at least 10. No problem. So just be vigilant out there. Do your best. If you need help, contact me. All right. Anyway, thank you for listening. That was my time for today. After a quick break, we'll get to the main story here and our most outrageous offer. Stay tuned.
The vervoids are probably the best dirty joke in Doctor Who.
They're hermaphroditic plants.
A lot of plants are.
So there you go. It's based on science.
No, they'll ship anything.
There are probably 11 and handle shippers out there. You just have to drill a hole where his mouth is, and you're all set.
He needs the broom. I've seen it in pictures.
I'm not saying you're not a fan. I'm saying you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Doctor Who gives a drunken Doctor Who podcast for the end times.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Up there is the scanner, those are the doors, that is a chair with a panda on it. Sheer poetry, dear boy.
And now it's time for the main story on the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. There are collectors out there, and there are collectors out there. Usually with a capital C. So my next guest is one of those collectors. He has a museum of classic sci-fi items that include over 200 original props and artwork from TV and film located in Northumberland. and the author of a new book called It Belongs in a Museum.
Small world, Dr. Jones. Too small for two of us. This is the second time I've had to reclaim my property from you. It belongs in a museum. So do you.
Please welcome to the podcast, Neil Cole. Neil, welcome back here. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, I'm amazed to be on this podcast because it's one of the ones I listen to, and it's lovely. And I'm just thank you for having me on. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. It's a real pleasure. And just to kind of go, let me just start back with the first question here. So how did you get started in putting together items for a museum and eventually books and other, how did this start?
Well, it started with an idea, and that idea came when I was 5 in 1975. My dad, we didn't have a lot of money as a family, but my dad took me. Blackpool's about a couple of hours from here, and for any Doctor Who fans will know, it was the home of the legendary Blackpool Doctor Who exhibition, which in an era before Harry Potter world and the sort of things that we see more frequently now. This was an incredible thing, and even more incredible because it was screen-used pieces from literally what you'd seen that Saturday at tea time, and it was the pieces from that year's programs, and it was unlike anything else, as you've probably heard many times. Many people of my generation say there was only one way to watch Doctor Who, that was live, and there was no way of seeing it again, and that's the big thing, and I think that's what really gave the two-force punch, as it were, effect of the exhibition, because suddenly it was all in your memory, and then you went downstairs and there it was. So that sowed the seeds of it. It blew me away. Seeing that TARDIS on the seafront and going from a bright, sunny seaside sunny day into a radiophonic, colour-drenched, monster-filled corridor was remarkable. That's when it started. Simple as that. Yeah.
Okay, I just had to, when listening to that, it reminded me, of course, Doctor Who started in the United States in 1975.
Oh.
And I was 6 years old that year, so
Right.
very close in age.
Yes.
And I remember it. I do remember it like it was yesterday, because it was one of the most important memories of my life when my mother called me in and said, "Hey, watch this with me. It looks cool." And it was part one of the Mutants by John Pertwee. And I never missed another episode. But you were right that we watched it and it rarely came back. I mean, we had to wait several years before in the United States when they started running it again. But in the UK, reruns were just not a thing.
Oh, in the UK, it was. I mean, I researched why. There's various reasons why, and I won't go into them here for time. But basically, it just wasn't a thing that was done. It was considered lazy. It was considered not a proper use of license fee, which obviously in the States I realise is an unusual thing for the American audience. We have to pay for TV, whether we like it or not. It's like a stealth tax over here. And anyway, in short, you couldn't see it. So it was books. And then in terms of the collector's journey, I think my first book I ever bought was that day at that exhibition, and it was Doctor Who and the Zarbi. And it was the only book there that I could buy. And of course, it had William Hartnell on the cover. And I had no idea, even getting that William Hartnell was a thing. I had no idea that there was another Doctor. And there it was, remarkable little book with the little black and white illustrations in. And that, again, just took me on, expanded my journey forthwith. Fabulous, really.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, over here, it was really something because we didn't see Doctor Who anything until roughly 1981. Wow. And it was a small comic book store that had just a little tiny shelf. And I'm like, wow, Doctor Who, magazine, books. The first book I bought was Day of the Daleks, which, of course, had John Pertwee on the cover, and he was my hero growing up. So I said, okay, I read that book like 9, 12, 15 times in a row, so I know the book forwards and backwards, including the typo on the last page. So it was really quite an amazing thing. And then in 1984, we got this little flyer that said, the ultimate celebration of Doctor Who in Chicago, and they brought in Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, Peter Davison, John Nathan Turner, all these people. And so, of course, I went down there, and this ties into your book a little bit because I was standing in the lobby waiting for the rest of my friends to come, looking out the window, and it just showed the beautiful Chicago skyline. And this person walked up next to me and said, "This is a marvelous city." And I looked up and I'm like, "That's Patrick Troughton."
Wow.
And I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, I have to say, it's a pleasure to meet you. And he shook my hand and said, "Thank you. I'm confused. Nobody here has ever seen my stuff." I said, "No, I've seen one of your stories, and it's still, The Crotons was the first one I saw." And he said, "Oh, we're showing that one here." So I said, "Okay, well, I got to get to see that." But we talked for a few minutes until somebody came and got him and took him to where he needed to go. But I'll never forget that moment. And I actually shared that story with his son, Michael, last year, who was here for our show. And I thought, wow, and I suddenly thought, there's so much more I'm missing to this. And over the years, we had access to more of the Patrick Troughton stories as they became available on streaming and DVD and whatnot. And so when we got to your book here, It Belongs in a Museum, and we'll get that in a moment, I thought, wow, a book about what happened on the sets of Patrick Troughton stories was just so intriguing to me. And so let me just go back for a quick thing. You started as a collector. So when did your museum open in Northumberland?
Well, the museum, oh my goodness, it was a fight to get the museum open because I was a school teacher. I had a modest sort of income.
So am I, by the way.
Yeah. Getting on for 30 years actually teaching, and I'm not now. I'm doing this now, but which is weird. But I had a Doctor Who club at school for 20 years. We built TARDISes and Daleks and all sorts. We had great fun. But anyway, and so going back, so I was teaching, and I'd got a little house. My mum and dad had died. I was an only child, so I'd looked after my dad had motor neuron, then my mum got dementia, and it was. I think by that point in my life, I got to think, well, I'm not. I was restoring props by this. And somehow in my head I had this long-term goal, but I just was getting to the point in my 40s where I thought, I'm not going to be able to afford a building, because properties are tight around. I realize now, looking at various places in America, it's properties quite hard to get here in terms of where you can actually realistically open somewhere. You've got to be able to legally open. You can't just put it in the middle of a housing estate. So the big problem was getting a building. And then this house, which is a grade 2 listed historic building, came on the market, and it was in shocking condition. It was, the ceiling above me wasn't here. There was just sewage running through. And you've probably seen in the book, it took me 2 years to literally gut this. And there was no any Doctor Who activity in that time. I was restoring the pterodactyl, I think, but upstairs, in terms of the cellar, it was purely a splitting pot. It was just hacking away. So that was 2015. It then took 2 years to do the stonework and dry the place out, get the ceiling in, and then it took me a year to build all the walls of the display. And every object in here has a plaque, so I've designed the plaques, write the blow, print the blow, all that. Sure. And it was a big job. And so it was 2018 when we opened. And then you probably possibly, I don't think I put it in the book, but then the county council turned up and tried to close us for 2 years.
Yes.
It was really, really good of them. And you could write a book on that. But so we did open in about 2018, and then COVID. So we were fighting the council, then COVID hit, and then it's just it's really, then we sort of did a second opening just after COVID. So we thought, look, we'll do it again, because this is crazy. We really, we've had everything thrown at us, short of, Daleks literally trying to blast us away. So we just thought, right, well, as Sophie Aldred came and she reopened, did a second opening. And then since then, it's been a steady build. But we are in a... Oh, good. Yeah, it's been in a very we're in a funny little place, beautiful little place. But we knew it was going to be a bit of an uphill struggle because we're where we are. But it's been good. People are coming. We've had people from all over the world. And we're still here and building momentum. You know what I mean? But I'm not a money-making... I'm not this... I was a teacher.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a businessman, and I try to... I do still do talks to children. I work with autistic children still a couple of days a week. And basically, I try to keep the prices down. I want this accessible. You know, I was a kid from a modest income, and I want everyone to be able to come here. This is not a sort of, I didn't register it as a charity, which I could have, because I thought, no, I'm not curing cancer. I'm not, saving animals.
Right.
This is a little business, but ultimately I want it accessible, and hopefully, that's been the and I think people get a nice feel from it. It's about sharing. It's not about things being shoved away and going, I've got this in this. Look what I've got. It's not that. It's, come and have a look all year round. Like the Blackpool, we're open all year round. You can come and see a bit of Classic Who, and you can get here all year round. That's the objective.
That's nice, because I feel the same way. That's one of the reasons I started this podcast, is I didn't want things to be, just stored somewhere and nobody could see it. I said, there are things that need to be seen. Next weekend, I'll be in Indianapolis doing a presentation on the classic Doctor Who books of 64 to 96, and I've got almost all of them, and none of them were sent to the United States, obviously. And we'll actually be with Keith Barnfather of Real Time Pictures. Yes. Yeah, so he'll be down there as well. Yes. He's one of our guests.
Yes, he's been remarkably good to me. I do wonder why at times. I bless him, but he has. We have filmed a lot of filming together now, and he has been remarkable. It's been a pleasure. To call him a friend.
He's great.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's a dear friend. I'm in one of his documentaries on the Who USA tour that happened in the late part of.
That is so interesting. I mean, I'm an exhibition geek, and that I have looked for pictures from that. I actually have the original painted artwork from the sides of the van. Obviously not the van's sides, but I have Andrew Skillet's original paintings. And
Andrew's a great guy too.
He's absolutely he's one of my heroes. And I've got a lot of his originals are in here, or quite a few anyway. But I've got his artwork for the side of that, and I adore the exhibitions and that. It's been like one of those missing. I never got to see an awful lot, to be honest, Larry. But bottom line is that I would love to. I just can imagine that rolling up in your small town somewhere, and there's the world's of Doctor Who.
It did roll up here in Chicago at Navy Pier, which was, and of course, I don't want to spoil the video for the folks out there, but there are some surprises to that. And some of the folks that actually did some wandering around in the countryside found the van.
Yeah.
And it was in terrible condition, and it was just sitting in a field. In fact, they went back a year later, and it was gone. But we have some pictures of that. Somebody took pictures of it and sent it to our. It's in a book called Red, White, and Who: The Story of Doctor Who in America. Great book.
I need to get
that. Oh, absolutely. I know the authors. It's I'll bring. I always have it within arm's reach, but it's a beautiful book. It's the entire history of Doctor Who in America.
Yes.
And so there was just these pictures of the exhibition. I probably couldn't find it in a heartbeat, but of how they found the van abandoned because the whole exhibition lost money, unfortunately. And it was but it was nice to see actual, like I said, we got a chance in America to see actual props, an actual Cyberman from Earthshock was there. The part of the console was there, and a Silurian, I believe, was in there.
Do you remember, was Nestor in there?
No, I don't remember Nestor at Chicago.
Right.
I think that is possible that it appeared in other cities because they tried to mix it up a little bit here.
I've had mixed reports that Nestor, who's now in here, but I've always wondered, was he in there or not? And the other one, I know there was a Cryon. Was there a Cryon in there?
I think there was a Cryon. That went with the Cyberman and the Cryon because that was really close to that. Yeah. I'm trying to remember because that was a long time ago. Gosh, 1996. Yeah. So I remember I owned a Doctor Who shop back then, so it was my interest was into that as well. But wow, what and of course I started a shop because I had accumulated so much that I said, wow, we've got to open up a store and eventually it did become very successful. My partner was Gene Smith. I don't know if you know Gene Smith. He runs Chicago TARDIS. He's the president of Alien Entertainment. one of the biggest Doctor Who stores in the country. So he took it to the next level. But and it's just it was such an amazing thing to see those things up close.
Yeah.
But they never brought any of that stuff to the conventions. They only did it in that rolling exhibition. And of course, I can imagine the cost of bringing that van all the way across from England, because and they brought it back to England too, which is something else. Let me just ask in your prop world here, what was the most exciting find that you have?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's been such a long journey now, but I can certainly tell you, with the piece that I was the most delighted with. Every so often you'll find a piece that is you've never seen. There's three. I can think of three. Okay. First of all and I got it from America, and it was early in my collecting journey, as it were. It was about a third piece I got, and it was the Galsec gun, the firing Galsec gun from Sontaran Experiment. And that is my favourite story. Believe it or not, Sontaran Experiment, I remember it. I remember Steyer being terrifyingly cruel, and the actual setting reminded me of where I lived. So it was just a very evocative story. And it was basically, it was Steyer, it was the Galsec gun, and it's metal.
Oh, wow.
And it had lost its plastic shroud. So it didn't, that's what I think had put people off the scent. And I looked at it, and I looked at the cylinder barrel, and I thought, that looks like blue chrome paint, and it was in the pits of it. And I thought, that's the flipping gun. And it was, yeah. And it was also the one used by Callie in her first story of Blade 7, because they
of course, yeah.
Yeah, they edited it, what's the word? They customized it a bit. And then the second one, it would have to be probably getting the pterodactyl from Bonhams. You know, I remember when I bought that, it was in terrible condition, the surviving pterodactyl. And that was that's the biggest restoration I've ever done. And I think the feeling of knowing, I loved that story as well. I thought the Visitation was a fabulous little tale. And I remember thinking,
me too.
Yeah, and I thought the aliens in it were just, at the time, in 82, those were such good creatures. I don't think Doctor Who had such a good quality monster for some time. And then to really lodged in my brain. And so to get that. And then the third one, I would say, was recently when Mike Tucker, at the end of the little event we had up here, he gave me this brown box. He said, this is for you to restore for the museum. And it was the Scarrison. And it's the actual hand puppet of the Scarrison. And that's on my kitchen table at the minute. I'm restoring that at the minute. I should have brought it down here. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, no problem.
But that was, and I got as many people as I could at the event. I said, come the car, come and look at this. And, and it was like, where's the Scarrison? And I mean, it's one of those things that it's rubbish, because it's the Scarrison. Yeah. But it's it's the Scarrison, so it's wonderful. So it's wonderful rubbish. It's not rubbish at all. But do you know what I'm saying? We know it's one of the most dodgy effects in Doctor Who history, the Thames. But you can see it as it's there. And that was like an amazing thing. So that's like having a member of the royal family in my house on the kitchen table. Everyone's looking at this really scruffy-looking hand puppet, and if anybody breathes, I go, don't touch the Scarrison, just leave it alone. Yeah.
No, that's great. I saw Loch Ness Monster, I think, when I was 7. So I was still, that's amazing. It's almost like the story when David J. Howe told me the story about how he talked to one of the set designers from the Mythmakers and said, oh, hey, you want the Trojan horse? I still have it in my garage.
That's an insane piece.
So he has the Trojan horse.
That's incredible.
And Andrew Skilleter got to draw that from the actual horse for the cover of the Mythmakers Target book.
I didn't know.
So so they actually have it. I'm like, so when I asked David Howe what his most prized thing is, I think it's the Trojan horse. I'm like, what do you mean? From Mythmakers, I have the actual Trojan horse. It's a little model. They put it, of course, on a scale and make it. I'm like, oh, that's amazing.
I would probably saw one of my legs off to put that in here. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that is such a piece of history.
Oh, and the other story, of course, I had Peter Purvis on the program about a year ago, and I asked him if he ever, he said, go ahead, please ask me about what I had. I said, okay, what did you have? He says, well, I had it, but I chucked it. I said, what's that? Well, when we finished filming The Celestial Toymaker, I said, hey, what are you going to do with that Trilogic game? And so they gave it to him. And so he had it set up in his apartment. He said, it was a really cool game. All the pieces were made out of wood and all that. It was just brilliant. I said, so what happened? He goes, well, as you know, a story later, I got fired from Doctor Who. And I struggled to get work. And so he went back to waiting tables, and every day he'd come home and sit in his chair and see that game sitting across here, because that game is cursing me. So he picked up that game and he threw it out. The very next day, he got the call for Blue Peter. And that changed his whole career, because he was on Blue Peter as a presenter for decades.
Yeah.
So it just, and he said he regrets it now because he probably could have paid for his retirement.
Yeah,
he
you
still had that game.
Yeah, it's quite sweet.
But again, like many props, and I teach drama at my high school, so it's I understand when you build something or you buy a prop, it goes in a bin, and maybe we'll use it again, maybe we won't. But if you're a television studio, you've got limited space. And I know that a lot of times they'll say, well, we're not going to keep this, throw it in the dumpster, and people do go dumpster diving and usually get lucky sometimes and find out, oh, it's in 2 pieces, but I've got this, and I can match it to the screen, and that's it's kind of a neat thing. The Doctor Who movie here in 1996, it was done here in America. They went in one day to look for the set, and the entire set had gone because somebody forgot to lock the warehouse. But the console room is in Indiana, so he won't say how he got it, but it's all there. But I know that's it's one of those things that prop collecting, and I know people that seriously get into it and really try to do that. I met a guy who had sonic screwdrivers from the series, and I thought, wow, I'm not supposed to have this, and I can't tell you about anything more about. I'm like, oh, well, okay, no problem. But that kind of leads us to the book. The first thing I noticed, of course, is you got Patrick Troughton on the front cover, but the title is from Indiana Jones.
Yes.
So, and I love that line because it's one of the best lines in the movie.
Yes.
It belongs in you belongs. So do you, Dr. Jones. And I thought, what a great way to start that whole thing. And I as soon as I saw the title, I was like, I agree with that sentiment. Because these things need to be shared.
It came about because of that sentiment. Because I exist in my own little way in the prop world. And I'm a serious prop collector, I guess. But I don't believe, I think particularly with Doctor Who, because of the way it was funded, because of the cultural significance in the UK, speaking from the point of view, I honestly really think this stuff should never have been sold. And I honestly think the BBC should have had a museum. I say that to so many people. I shouldn't be doing this. This should be in a central place.
Right.
Now, the reality is, I know from speaking to people who worked at the various exhibitions, I know a lot of people various people who've said they were never given any budget to care for the things. They were never looked after properly. So now they're probably the safest possible place they can. We're in a stone cave, effectively. It's half underground, this.
Right.
Which is why I'm wrapped up. I'm dressed like, as you can probably see, you're in a T-shirt, and I've got about 50 jumpers on. And basically, it's cold, and it never, even on the hottest day, it doesn't. I'm in jumpers like this. And that's great for props. There's no light, daylight, no UV. So everything is stored. Sorry to go back to your question, what you're saying. If you don't to the museum, I do believe that. And I think that people should have access to this. I think this is a shared cultural history. It's very dubious, the whole selling of the props in a way. In many ways, the BBC, I know the BBC had the right to sell them, but the whole country funded these things being made in the first place. It's a very odd thing, the BBC, when you look at it. And the actual title of the book came because I was actually involved in the book before. This book came from another book. I was with a small publisher, and it morphed. And I ended up doing, and ultimately, it was the idea of it. I came up with the idea of it. It came to frame from a museum because I just thought it was. It just summed up. I just felt this stuff. It's like the Blackpool exhibition. I would go to it. It was there. And everyone could go and see it, and all loved it. And I just thought, when I'd seen infighting in the community of props and underhand this and dealings and all sorts goes on. And I just thought, this belongs in a ruddy museum, not stuck away in your back cupboard. Do you know what I mean? And it's great you've got that, and then I'd even had a collection for so long. And it's just in my back bedroom. And it was getting to the point where it's just stuff. And you cease to get anything from it after a while. You know what I mean? And I hate this. And I know it's hard to say. I don't like this sort of, look what I've got. Mm-hmm. And you can't, and you can't see it. And it's like, but I've got it. And I think, it's pathetic. And I think since I'm now in my 50s, and my dad died. If I'm on his timeline, I've got another 10 years of life, sort of thing. Hopefully I'll be longer. But you think, I don't just want to be sitting like this. It's just ridiculous. You've got to do something with pieces like this. Everybody loves it and share it. And that's the whole reason. It belongs in a museum. So that was it. And the book as well became a mini museum. It was a chance for collectors. The reality is not every collector can do what I'm doing. It's a lot of effort. Right. So it's a typical thing. So I thought, well, okay, maybe this book could be a little sort of inter-museum, a sort of little museum in itself and that's why I reached out to different collectors and I said, look, could you share your pictures? And they were like, yeah, that's great. And we'll put them out. So we create a little, so at least people get to see them, not just on a screen, but they've got them in a hand in a book form at least. Do you know what I mean? That was the premise.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
That's an amazing thing because I recently got, it was about a month or two ago, I get this email from David Howe and said, hey, you probably have a lot of this stuff from Spirit of Light, from all the merchandise that we put out in the United States. I say, yeah, I've got almost all of it. He goes, well, we're doing a new Blu-ray release, Doctor Who Blu-ray, and we want to include that on there. So could you please photograph everything you have and send it? So all my photographs are going to be in the next Blu-ray release. So because in the UK, this stuff never got sold to the UK.
Yes.
And that's, that's something I thought, well, I need to share that more. And whenever I do a convention appearance, it's usually, last year I did 60 years, 60 items.
Yes.
So I looked for somebody challenged me to say, do you have one item from each year of the series, including 63, which was not easy, but I did have one, all the way to the present day. And I said, okay, and the rule is you can't buy anything that you don't have. You can't, unless it's already been ordered, which saved me there. But I went through the entire collection. I said, yes, I do. So I presented that all year to different places. And I said, this is not a, look at me and all that. I said, no, take a look. Here, hold it. This is up close. This is what this was. Yeah. And my 63 item, by the way, was an issue of Radio Times. It had the second episode of Doctor Who with a picture of William Hartnell on the inset. Nice. And I got that from a company in England called Kelly's Books and stuff, and they went out of business. So before they did, I said, can I buy whatever you have? And they said, sure, we just need to get rid of it all. So they shipped me this big box of Radio Times, and I went through them all, and some of them had stuff, some didn't, but it was like, oh, I've got something. Yeah. But it was really neat to go through that. And my goal was to bring to the United States what never got here in the first place. Yeah. And to show, hey, here's the Dalek book. Here's a plate from Weatherby's in '65 that of a many thing. This is something that you never saw here, and we never got that. And I kind of take what I call a traveling museum, so to speak. It takes up a lot of boxes, a lot of padding, and I've never lost an item. I've never had anything broken, and it's just such a amazing thing. I'm trying to see if there's something here on reach. I'm like, no, probably not. But I do have one of the things I got recently was about a year or two ago was a Target book proof by Donald Cotton. It was the Gunfighters with his editorial marks, and he put his signature on it. Lovely. So it was that was pretty cool. And I thought I've got a few Target covers, and for Keith Barnfather, I dug out of my VHS collection the very first real-time picture release from 1988, and it was sold here in Michigan. Oh, so
that's lovely.
But back to the book. My favorite part of the book is right at the beginning when you say, this is not an episode guide. This is a history book, and it's also a picture book. So I know that's, it may not be important, but I thought this is important because people often go, well, wait a minute, there's stuff missing in here. But I'm like, no, this is not that kind of book. This is a different kind of book about, like I said, leftover scraps of memory and traditional illustrations, hand-drawn, and going through the entire, I love, all the illustrations are amazing, the photographs are clear, it's a really, really nice guide to some of these props, and you've got information on what was used for exhibitions and what was actually out there, and some folks that did share their photos from private collections, including, I guess my favorite one in here is the cyber controller from Tomb of the Cybermen.
That's thanks to Matt Doe. He's listening. Matt Doe, who you probably know from Movie Reliquary. He's again a collector. He's lovely. I mean, he's always supported what I've done, and he said, Matt, any chance I can have the photos of the cyber controller? Because I was trying to get. Basically, the initial idea was to use objects in the museum. The book started is one thing. It basically started as an illustrate. I was doing illustrations for a Derek Sherwin book, and then that fell through. So the publisher, it was just for various reasons, and the publisher said, how about you, I'd written the last chapter, and he said, how about you do a whole book based from the side of the museum on trout? And I went, yeah, go on then. And then basically how it worked was that my subscribers to the museum, who very kindly support me, as a thank you to them, I do them a drawing every year each. So I said, how about, would you mind if your drawing this year was a Troutland one, and you'll get it in a published book? And then eventually it just ended up where I had a different idea for the book than the publisher, and I just felt that I just had such a lovely supportive, subscriber group now, and we call Friends of the Museum. They're lovely, and they visit whenever they want. Also, it's lovely. And I just thought, I think I'll go solo on this, because I wanted to put the photo section in. The publisher very much, I think, had a page limit on it, and it was kind of like one picture, one page of text, one picture, and it was like, there's more to say. And I knew this was my first proper book, and I thought, no, I'm going to stick my neck out and do this myself. And I just had I like the museum, I had such strong ideas, and I've got ADHD, I'm autistic, I have ADHD. So basically, when I get an idea, I am wow, and I've had all my life, compromising. And the museum was not a compromise. And it's like, you know what you want to do, and you know it's right. And the museum proved that, yes, it's right. So, for example, the number of people who said, oh, these coloured lights, you can't read the plaques. And I'm like, no, it's the 1975 Doctor Who exhibition. We're having coloured lights. This is not an English heritage display on the Roman wall. It's not, you know what I mean? Doctor Who is primary colours, That's it. And it's slowly just thinking, no, I know this subject now. I know what I'm doing. And it's the same with this book. I just thought, there's a lot out there. And so the initial idea was to use objects in the museum. But the problem was, I haven't got many from Patrick Troughton. It's very scarce stuff. So I thought, no, but I thought, I can do this still. I just throw it open to collectors, and let's see if we can get everybody in. And then it becomes more of it gets that extra input in, which it did. People like Matt were fantastic, because he gave me pictures of the Ice Warrior helmet as well. It was fantastic. Yes. And I think it makes it's a much stronger book because of it.
Oh yeah, I was very excited because one of my friends here, Colin Young, who I've known for a long time, has a servo robot, and I knew that before, and I thought, I've never seen it, but here it is. Look, and it's that's
glorious.
And I think back to the Wheel in Space here, and I thought, only a few episodes exist of that. Yeah. What an amazing thing, and some of the items just in here, I'm like, are the Quark's head. From it's rumored to be out there.
There's a lovely quark there, and that's another amazing Doctor Who fan called Connor Hart, who supports the museum. And if he's listening, hello Connor. But Connor brought all his collection. He has a huge collection of replicas and some originals now, and he made a quark. And I thought, that quark is so damn good. I know it's not the original, but if you want to see a quark at the minute in the flesh, that's your best chance of seeing one. So I thought, I'm going to give it a plug, because I just think it did such a beautiful job.
Absolutely.
And again, he puts himself out. He goes to events and he takes his stuff out so that you can see them, which is lovely,
And the other favorite of mine is the Space Pirate helmet.
Yes,
because that looks amazing.
Yes.
And probably from a story that actually was kind of underrated, and of course doesn't exist except in one episode form, and which is strange considering that last season of Troughton seemed to get preserved, except for a handful of like Space Pirates, the bulk of, and a couple episodes of The Invasion were not available. And I thought, wow, because that's basically how we got Troughton in the United States, was when they brought over in '84, when they brought Troughton over, they brought all 10 episodes of the War Games and the Crotons and showed those on a big screen. And we all got to enjoy it for the first time. And I've seen I've seen every existing Troughton that there is, and I'm looking at these items going, wow, this is really, really amazing. And of course, and you're right, this was 1966 to 1970, and a lot of that stuff, if they did store it, it was stored in horrible condition, or it got broken as it was moved, or they thought, what is this? We don't need this anymore. Or they deteriorate,
if it wasn't for the exhibition, one of the amazing things in there is the 2 cyber helmets I found.
Yes.
I was, and the difference in condition. Just shows you how one has been very carefully looked after, and one has been. It looks like it's been, in a football match as the ball for about 2 years, and it's and then problem with this book, and I did say I'd have loved to have done somebody did say, are you including all the surviving objects? And I went, oh my God, I'd love to, but I would never get the book done because, as happened with the Cyberman helmets, the second nice Cyberman, Bob Richardson, visited the Museum out of the blue. Now, he was the guy who ran and designed the Blackpool exhibition. So it was like a hero coming to the museum. We spent all morning going around here, and he was telling me what had been in Blackpool, what hadn't been. But he also said what happened to the props. He said, literally, we went down, we picked them up. They were wrapped in newspaper, shoved in tea chests, banged in the back of a van. And it's like, wow, it's like, so, whoa, really? And I can't, people sometimes say, would you bring the Cyber Scout? Often gets asked, would you bring the Cyber Scout to an event? I'm going, I really can't, because it's like paper. The outer skin of the costume, it's covered in resins, and I've moisturized it and gone as well. But even just picking it up will make it go crick. It's like now, these are so fragile, these things. You've got to look after them. In the book, as I say, the two cyber heads are fascinating. Cyberman heads, let's face it, are quite robust because fiberglass is just amazing stuff.
I'll go ahead and just give everybody a sneak peek of what he's talking about here. But the two cyber helmets he's talking about. And I've seen some really good replicas, probably based on one of these helmets that looks really good. And of course, I've seen some cosplayers do amazing things.
Cosplayers
with cyber helmets. And just to me, when I saw the moon base at first, I thought, wow, what an amazing! I always thought that was a better Cyberman than what they did going forward, because it was more robotic and metallic and grating and a little more sinister than we get to Revenge of the Cybermen, and they're just having conversations, moving, and I'm like, wow, you could have used that model throughout, and it would have been really grating and really frightening and all that. And I thought, wow, what an amazing thing. And of course, as a collector myself, and when I looked at Target books, this always bothered me, because when Target books started coming out in the 70s, when they did Tomb of the Cybermen, they put the wrong Cybermen on the cover, not to confuse the reader.
Yes.
They also stopped putting doctors' pictures on the cover because they didn't want to detract from Tom Baker.
Yes.
So that you'll see all of a sudden no pictures of Troughton or Hartnell on any cover, but they also put the wrong, Cyberman on another book, or the Doctor and the Cybermen, or the Moon. They changed it completely so that there was, oh wait, we can't confuse the reader. And in fact, you may even know this, but in '75 they produced 3 hardcover books: the Zarbi, the Daleks, and the Crusaders, and put Tom Baker's picture on the cover.
Didn't know that, actually. I'm not surprised. I'm not remotely surprised. But that the thing is, I was 5 in '75, and I got my humble Bill Strutton paperback, and there was Hartnell on the front. I got it in the exhibition, so it was clearly, they had Doctor Who, there it was. And it's funny, I had a moment of what? And I remember sitting at the table that day, I was at, some B&B somewhere, and I was just like, and then I twigged, oh, this is the Doctor. Oh. And it didn't take me long. It's funny, isn't it, how publishers, they sort of think you've got to dumb down. It's like even a 5-year-old, you very quickly cotton on. It's not rocket science. It's like what they're saying a little bit about the new show. It's like when they're sort of saying, oh, it's got to be for younger viewers. I think, hang on, I was 5 when I watched Genesis of the Daleks, Ark in Space, Pyramids of Mars. I got it. I didn't get maybe the subtle of it, but I loved Davros. I was like, yes. I don't want like space babies, I'm sorry. I wouldn't. If a 5-year-old, I wouldn't have watched that. I'd have just thought this is like this is like the kids' channel. This is like toddlers' TV. I just think it's funny, isn't it, how people think they think of young. I mean, as a teacher of young people, of children, children they're quite sophisticated. They can take quite a bit. And then they don't like to be dumbed down too generally, I would say. Anyway, I digress. Larry.
No,
I apologize.
No, it's okay. No, it's all good. It's all good. Sometimes the conversation goes in right turn, left turn, roundabout, and back to where we are. And of course, I'm always thinking, when America, just back going off in a different direction just for a moment. But when Americans think about Northumberland, my first thought was Vera.
Vera. Because Vera's van pulled up. Literally, Vera filmed outside my house.
Is that right?
Yeah,
that's
the
awesome.
museum house is in an episode of Vera, very fleetingly. And she parked. Now, my wife loves Vera, just to be clear.
Yeah.
I quite like Vera. I like it. Basically, any of those, that genre, that's when, the drawings I do in the book, I sit after tea time, we put one of those on any of that ilk, and we just sit and I draw. I can listen to them. It's like listening to an audio play almost, And around around this place, there's several locations, many, not just one or two, loads. They're up here probably once or twice a year, to film the latest. Because it's good scenery, and it's not too busy as well. So it's good. I could literally sit with you. If I was with you, I could literally go, yeah, that's there, that's around the corner, that's there. You know what I mean?
That's great. Well, I like the show because you do get to see an amazing scenery of that area of the country, which doesn't often, come around anywhere else, because all the other detectives are in London or somewhere else. But here's Vera, who's out in Northumberland.
Yeah, she's in Hexham. Yeah, she was in Hexham the other week, and she was around the back of my friend's house. I was just, it's honestly, literally, my friend was looking out the back window, who I used to teach with, the teacher, and literally they were filming Vera down a back lane. And she went, I didn't believe it. Wow. Vera was on the back lane. And I was like, it's great, isn't it? Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
that is exciting. Oh,
I'll tell you what. Can I just say, Larry? Do you get a show? Do you get a show called Ludwig over there yet?
I don't know. No, maybe not yet.
David Mitchell. He's a detective. Great show called Ludwig, and he's like a puzzle. He becomes a detective accidentally, and he's a puzzle maker. He solves puzzles, writes crosswords, and anyway, I just thought I wish him and his co-star was the new Doctor Who and companion, because it's cerebral, witty, clever, and if you get a chance to see it, I just thought, I wish those two were Doctor Who and company.
I'll write it down and see if we have it over here.
I mean, I'm talking. We do get it left to feel.
We get BritBox over here, so a lot of times those things
Ludwig,
come through. Or
try out Ludwig. It's great.
Yeah.
He's a comedian, the guy who plays it, but he's a very dry, witty man, a very, very clever man, actually. And I just was watching it, I said, I reckon if you put those two on now, it'd be totally different. Two clever, interesting people, got a bit older, witty. I think it would be, I just thought, I wish they were.
Well,
they were Doctor Who.
Speaking of comedians, about 6 months ago, the Chicago Theater had John Bishop.
Oh, John Bishop!
He toured through the United States on his stand-up tour, and people are like, "Who is this guy?" I said, "You don't know who this is? He's very funny.
He's very funny."
And was I thought he was brilliant on the show too in Doctor Who. So just a wonderful guy. But a lot of people here we don't know who that is. I'm like, well, I went to see him and I just laughed the whole time.
Oh, he's great. He's really funny.
Amazing.
He's a great stand-up. Yeah, he was a teacher, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
He was a teacher as well. Yeah, he's really funny. Yeah. Teachers are good, man.
So many things.
Yeah.
Real quick, you've done quite a few TV and media appearances. Any notable things? I know that we had your website up, and we'll have that link, of course, on our podcast page for our listeners here, so you can check out what Neil's doing there. But tell us about some of your more notable appearances on television.
I've had quite a few. Yeah. Right. To be clear, Larry and listeners, I don't seek this out. Okay, I'm as a teacher, like yourself, we get used to talking. So when people do come, it's not a big deal, is it? In a sense, but we kicked off in grand style with Netflix. So I'm Amazing. We are the third episode of Amazing Interiors, where the American producers seem to like the idea of a mad English eccentric in a Northumbrian stone cellar making a science fiction museum. And I think the whole point of that show was that it was meant to be people were transforming their home into their passion project. Now, it ended up, because I got to know the production team really well, they were struggling to actually get people who did it themselves. So if you watch the show, there's some people who are clearly millionaires who have just had it done, Whereas I think, in a way, without blowing my own trumpet yet, I was there. They really liked what I was doing because I was actually the guy doing everything. I was bashing away, hammering away, and I didn't have the money, So I didn't have any money. I can make up in labour, and I did a stint as a builder when I was 20. So I thought I appointed a church, and I thought, okay, I've done that before. I can do it again. So that was one, and that was wonderful. Although it is me pre-male pattern baldness. So if you want to see what this face looked like when he was in a Rush tribute band, that's the one for you. And then the next one was probably, we were just recently on Susan Calman. She's a Doctor Who fan comedian, and that's on Channel 5. She came and visited. That was lovely. I've been on a lot of BBC News programmes, basically over the Dalek. The Dalek, I was actually teaching in my art room at the time, my school. I had the daughter of one of the BBC presenters was one of my pupils, and she came to my Doctor Who club as well. And so when the council kicked off about the Dalek, it was like, what on earth is this? What a load of waste of public money, basically. So I then had the BBC touring around. They basically said, don't worry, everywhere you go to these awkward people, we're going to be there filming it. And so you can imagine every time I turn up for a legal meeting, there'd be a BBC camera crew over my shoulders, like, you don't mind if we film, do you? You know, because you've got nothing to be ashamed of, because clearly everything you're saying is so rock solid and brilliant, you're going to be fine. So there was a lot of things like that. And then, then I think the thing I'm most proud of, I'll be honest, is the real-time pictures released with Keith. I think
yes.
The behind the documentary that he made, it was Doctor on Display Volume 1. I am so proud of that, and very honoured and humbled that he thought I was worth. I thought I'd be an add-on. You know, at the end of that series, you know, Blackpool Longley, Llangollen, you know, Blackpool, Cardiff, whatever. Then at the end, and this dude in Northumberland's having a bit of a bash in his house, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I was thrilled that he did that. I'm beyond thrilled. And then he did the Monster Man follow-up, which was nice, because the Netflix documentary, they really were just interested in the sort of bricks and mortar. I made them include the science fiction, because it's like, no, the reason I'm doing all this is because of this. But what I liked about the Monster Man is that to me is the passion. That's saving these items. That's where my, you know, keeping these things going is this is kind of, what's the word? You know, this is all an offshoot of the fact I just needed a house to put them in. Right. But without the props, I would have probably just been still in a smaller house and just, you know, without trying to be a builder every day. You know what I mean? It's that sort of. So I've been very lucky. A lot of appearances, and very, very lucky with that.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, I do get calls for. I've been interviewed on other shows. I've been, with Keith Barton-Father myself, and and some of the other projects. People are like, "Well, wait, do you have one of these? Because we need a photograph of something from that." I'm like, well, let me check. Oh, yes, I do. No problem. Here you go. And that's and of course my Who room is basically what you see around me, and that's most of everything is on this wall, which I can't see from the camera. But well, I can turn it real quick here. Let's see. Nice. There you go.
Nice.
So that's the one wall there, and the other wall over there. There's a few Daleks over there, and all that. But it's just been a passion for me since '85 when I opened a store, and we basically got to take one of everything before we put it out for sale, and then just the search when I go online looking for, okay, I need to find this book, and I don't want to pay more than this for it, and then I get lucky every once in a while, or I have the reputation now of going, oh wow, I know what you're doing, and this is not about personal profit. It's
I'm the
not
same.
About, I'm not here to turn it around for a quick buck. I'm trying to get it together in a collection so that when I do go on the road here, I can say, okay, here's what the whole set looks like, and here's what this is here, and come on up and take a close look at this. It's not like, don't put the white gloves on.
No, that's right.
Take a look at it.
There's a lot of people who say things which I've experienced firsthand. They'll say, oh, this is for my collection. I'm buying this for my collection, and they're not there. They're buying it to sell on. And I think
yes.
People know I've had some lovely donations. Been very, very lucky. I've had Sophie Elder has been very wonderful, and and she donated some pieces, and also Graham Harper donated the lead cyber helmet from Doomsday here. So that's in.
Nice.
And I mean, again, I think he'd come round, he'd seen it, and then Margot Hago, who worked on Doctor Who extensively, she donated her Triffid, which I restored.
Oh, nice.
And that took me 6 months of careful restoration, and that was the deal. You can have it if you restore it. I'll restore it. Don't worry. And presented it when she visited. I presented it. I showed it. So that's in here. So things like that, and I think it's because people realise I had a Predator head. The chap who plays the Predator, Alan White, not Alan White. He's the Yes drummer. No, Ian White. Sorry, Ian White. He's visited a few times, and he very kindly donated. He was the Predator, the engineer in Prometheus. He lives probably about an hour away, and he pops in every so often. He's donated his Predator head to the Museum Sci-Fi. The thing is, I have to have a half science fiction side, because obviously I'm not the BBC. So I can't call this a BBC Doctor Who exhibition. So it is,
right.
It's 50-50. And that's no bad thing, because my second favorite show in the world is the original Outer Limits, the 1963 Outer Limits. I adore that show. And And I've got again, things from that show are absolutely scarce. I think they were.
Oh, I know. Yeah, here for us in the United States, Battlestar Galactica from the late '70s was a huge thing, and I found a guy who has the actual Battlestar in his collection. That the model they used.
That's insane.
The space scenes with the little hooks on the top for the wire that they put down so they could hang it and move it along. And I said, wow. And the 70s were amazing with that, and just some great stuff. So, okay, well, as we kind of come to a close here, tell everybody here where they can find you online and where they can buy this wonderful book.
Right. Well, the book, it belongs in a museum, which I am very proud of. I think it is a good book. I think it's a good book. It's a better than a good book. It's a very good book. I do think so. And
it is a good book.
It's 2 years of researching and drawing. And volume 2 is on its way. I'm working for next year. But basically, where you can buy it, you can go to the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi.com, and you will find a page on there. And basically, to get it from me, mail order, you just need to email the museum, tell them you want it, and we'll send you the details. And it's also available in the wonderful little bookshop, Galaxy 4, and which is a mail order bookshop, wonderful little bookshop, and they've been so supportive. They've sold out of the book 3 times. I've had to restock them. That's really cool. And I did not expect that, Larry, at all, honestly. And then the other one is Blake's Heaven, which is a lovely little sci-fi shop in London. Nice. Grant Holsworth, who's a wonderful exhibition of Blackpool model miniatures in the book. And he's got some copies for sale there as well. So if you need to buy it from the museum, Galaxy 4, Blake's Heaven have all got copies. And I've tried to produce a book that is not like any other. And all I'll say is, it is not an episode guide, because basically, Larry, if you and me are buying that book about Patrick Troughton, we have watched those stories. And with some of the books from the BBC that come out, there was one called The Monster Vault, which I was so excited about. I was so excited about The Monster Vault. I love monsters. And it was just telling me the story. And I was like, I watched these, I know this. And it was like, it's a good book. Don't get me wrong, if you're a younger person who's never seen them, it's great. But I think when you get to our lineage and generation, I'm wanting something a bit more. So it's the book I was trying to write the book I would buy myself, and I wanted to, try to get it to a little bit beneath. You know what I mean?
And I think you got there. I think you've accomplished that. It does remind me of another book that came out not too long ago. I had John Walsh on the program. He did the Doctor Who and the Daleks film book.
Oh yes, I haven't seen that.
And he put he had access to all of Studio Canal to get to whatever they had and all these great photographs. And I said to John, your book sold out in like a day. He goes, yeah, we were shocked. And so we went back to the printer and said, we needed a second edition. Yeah. What are you talking about? It's sold out. And I got my copy of your book from Galaxy 4. So it was really nice to get that. And of course, I think you did put your mark in there. So thank you.
Yes, I did. Everybody gets them from me. I do a drawing. I personalize it. I do a little drawing. I'm sorry. If you get them from me, I'll actually do you a doodle in it of your favorite monster. So anyone who's got it direct from me, I will do a sketch of. Most people, I did either a Croton, a Quark, a Cyberman, a Yeti, or a Dalek, and I bet on Saturday Night for it. And I just did it randomly. If you didn't tell me, so it was like you didn't know what you were going to get. You were going to get. It was like, you know what I mean?
That's
quite nice.
I'm going to share with you one more thing, because when I did open my shop, we had the cover hand drawn, and I'll show you this cover.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. I've got a copy of that. I've got a copy of that, yes. A guy called Elodie's Pagan. You know Elodie's?
Yes, I know. Yeah, I'm going to be with him next week.
I can't pronounce his name. He came and spent...
Elweathis,
that's right. And he spent the night with us. We went out and we had he came up here, we spent the night, it was lovely. And basically...
So you have a copy of this catalog in there. This is my company.
He brought me that. He brought me a copy, yeah. It was lovely.
Oh, that's wild.
That
is wild. When I found out David J. Howe had one of these in his museum, and I thought, this is awesome. These catalogs are so hard. I mean, I don't have very many originals left, but what I love about it is the man who drew this is Bill Eubank. He's been gone for a long time, but he was a commercial artist. He was also a professional actor, clown, performer, and he did one of the very first cosplays of Davros in 1984. He took it to Chicago, and if you look at the 1984 Doctor Who magazine summer special, they did a big photo spread on that convention, and he's the first picture. The Davros in there was Bill. It caught the attention of the photographer. All the other photos are of the celebrities, but he's in that photo. And we bought we just got very excited as a young group, and he, of course, said, oh, no, you don't have to pay me for this. I'm just going to draw it. So he drew the cover, and on the back, he draws this amazing little John Pertwee and Joe on the back. You have this in your collection, but that's wonderful that you do. But it's just, I'm just blown away by that it's reached that far away. So that's wonderful.
I'm amazed. I mean, Larry, I'm amazed that you're sitting there with a book I signed probably in the last couple of weeks. That's ridiculous.
It came, no problem.
That is insane. It's blowing my mind that a little book of me. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, I've been one of these people in fandom that's really kind of like, I'm being below the radar very much because I've been a lone fan in a rural area. You know, I didn't even know about pre-internet. I didn't know fandom existed. No?
Right.
You know what I mean? I really honestly had no idea. No idea. There was no way of knowing. You know what I mean? There was.
And it's a big thing. You know, the United States, you know, we still have some major conventions. Like I said, I'm doing one next weekend, Oktoberfest.
Yes.
And then this November we have Chicago TARDIS over Thanksgiving weekend.
Famous convention. Yeah.
Yeah, very. My friend Gene has been running that for years, and of course we've got 3 doctors coming. We got Joe Martin, Sylvester McCoy, and Paul McGann. So it'll be a lot of fun, and of course Fraser Hines comes to every convention. So he's you know, I'm surprised he hasn't been out to your museum yet.
Well, the bottom line is, I've had a few. You've probably seen. I've had an event, basically about an event a year. And that sounds horrendous. It's small. So the whole point is there's no queues, right? I've got a no queue policy. It's about 60, 70 people max. We have a beautiful village hall, which is decked out. It's not just like it's been dated. So it's like half a cinema. It's got a cafe. You get hot food. You get hot soup and cakes and all home baked. And you come and you sit and you chat with the celebs. You sit and have a cup of tea with them. That's what we do. So it's
okay.
I can't afford to do lots of them because I don't make a lot of money from them, and it's not the point. The point is to give people you visit the museum and go and meet a few people. They've worked out really well. But Fraser, if he's listening to this, I would absolutely welcome him with open arms. I'm trying to get Katie Manning because she said yes in principle, because I'd like to launch the book the back end of next year and have a signing of me with Katie, because it's the third week.
I think that'd be great. I've known Katie since 1984, and we talk every few days.
Yes.
So
well,
I'll put the bug in her
ear. Please do. Just say you met this guy in Northumberland, because I'll tell you, I'm very serious. I'd love her to write the foreword like Margot Hayhoe did. I'd love her to write the foreword because I just think that would be perfect for the book. You know what I mean? Margot has been massively supportive, and she was the one who wrote in the beginning. Sorry, then I'll shut up. She's the one in the beginning of the book where she actually said something like little scraps, something tucked away, and I thought that's almost the tagline for the book. That's how this stuff survived. Something tucked away. You know, and that's how this stuff's, most of it. It's just put it away, just a little bit. And if they hadn't, it wouldn't be here at all. You know what I mean? Remarkable, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh! Well, listeners, my guest is Neil. My guest is Neil Cole. Thank you for being on the show today. You just go to our website, DoctorWhoCollectors.com, and under the episode page, we're going to have all those links to the museum, to Galaxy 4, and all that, so you can directly access this book. And of course, just an amazing time. This was a great conversation. So, of course, my Patreon viewers will get to see the video here and the interactions we've had. So, Neil, I really appreciate you listening and being on the program.
Absolute pleasure to be on. Honestly, an honor to be on. I've listened to this show a lot, so thank you for having me. It's weird, strange being on, but very, very lovely that I've been on. Thank you.
Thank you. And my listeners, please stay tuned for the most outrageous offer.
We are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week, we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulke, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast on the Direction Point Podcast Network. Keep collecting.
All my travellings throughout the universe, I have battled against evil, against power-mad conspirators. I should have stayed here. The oldest civilization. Decadent, degenerate, and rotten to the core. Power-mad conspirators, Daleks, Sontarans, Cybermen. They're still in the nursery compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really corrupt.
And now it's time for the most outrageous offer, the part of the program where a Doctor Who item or Doctor Who related item is at a much higher price than it should be. So I get a lot of these now. Thank you so much for sending those in. I look at every one of them. We try to make sure that it's actually a most outrageous offer versus an item that's actually quite hard to find and is just, we can't find it anywhere else. We have to be able to find one for significantly less. And in this case, I have no doubt this is a good one. Today we're talking about the paperback edition of Doctor Who, the Dave Gibbons Collection. And I remember the hardcover. I have the hardcover and I have this book. I have this one in my collection. It's a compilation of all the comics that he did from, Marvel Premiere and the Doctor Who comics all in one collection. Came out 2012. So IDW Publishing. So I found one here that was sent to me here anonymously, and we're going to take a look. So the company is DSM Books, Liverpool, United Kingdom. Has a 4 out of 5 star review, so something went wrong there. I might look into that in a moment, but we'll see. They're asking, shipping to the United States is $32.62, and our price is $1,946.73. No idea why it's that much money, almost $2,000 for this book. It's not terribly rare. It says it's like new. All right, so not much here from the seller as far as why it's that much money. So we'll take it there. I've got screenshots and a link on the website here because sometimes they take it down, but I want to make sure you saw what I saw. So I did some checking here, and you can get the exact same book in actually better condition for roughly $41.38 from ZBK Books in Carlstadt, New Jersey. Free shipping for them. I found that one. There's probably several more out there, but I also went on to eBay and I found one for $12.99. So this is more of a reading copy. It's in a little bit, not so great a shape, but not too many on eBay, but nothing above $50, which I believe is, I think the cover price, that was the cover price for the hardcover. I know that, but okay, this does qualify. So if I look at this person's reviews here, let's see here. It's not going to let me do that. All right, let me check out DSM Books here. We're going to take a look right now. Not much here at all. They have No books in there. Let's see. Is there anything in their collection? They have a few books for sale here. I don't see anything that's crazy priced. A lot of stuff that's pretty reasonable, except for the Doctor Who items. So this must be a seller that thinks that if it's got Doctor Who on it, it must be rare. So there we go. So it's kind of crazy, but you can get this book for a lot less. And I think you can still get it on Amazon, for a matter of fact. I'm not entirely certain. I'm not going to do that search right now, but you can certainly do that while you're listening. This is crazy. It's a great book, by the way. Great stuff. I love Dave Gibbons' artwork, but there's no reason to pay $2,000 for this paperback. So I do declare this to be an outrageous offer. So that takes care of the most outrageous offer. If you have an item that you'd like to share with us here at the podcast, send us an email at drwhocollectors@gmail.com. I'm sorry, let me say that again. drwhocollectorspodcast@gmail.com. And put most outrageous offer in the subject line, include a link and any kind of information that goes with it, and we will do our investigation. So there we go. And that concludes this episode of the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Thank you for listening. I want to thank my guest, Neil Cole. What a great conversation. And thank you for listening, Neil. I really appreciate it. And that was a wonderful thing. Make sure if you get to Northumberland to visit the museum. Coming up on the next couple podcasts here, we will have a deep dive into Doctor Who Print the Legend on paperbacks. And we'll be speaking with the current record holders, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, for the largest Doctor Who collection in the world. And many more to come as we get into convention season here. So stay tuned and keep collecting.
A Doctor Who Podcast Network.